Hey everybody. So here I am on Facebook. I was supposed to do my yoga live stream today from my YouTube channel, but they somehow I had to verify my channel again. I had already done that, and then now I have to wait 24 hours. So I'm here on Facebook instead, which I hope you'll find your way over here. If you're on and you want to say hello, and sorry if I missed you guys if you were heading over to my YouTube page. That was not supposed to happen that way. But if you're here and you are wanting to join me in the practice, I'll record this though, and it'll be available later as well if you're not live right now. We're going to do an easier TLC practice, I'll call it, where we'll do some things to open up the body, align the body, do some key strengthening movements and exercises, but that will let the body release and ground and clear. So it's a class that I often teach at Yoga Collective called Therapeutic Alignment. And it's, if we feel tense in our bodies, it's more than just needing to stretch, right? So yes, we think, okay, I'm tense, I need to stretch to release that tension, but actually it's more complex than that. Sometimes a tight muscle is because it's weak or overstretched or out of alignment, posturally speaking. So we can actually create a lot of clearing and harmony through some very pointed strengthening and realigning exercises, along with some good stretches and so on. So if you're here and you want to join in, this usually works best with props. I do want to use a ball. I have a lacrosse ball here. If you want to join, maybe grab whatever you have, a tennis ball, a golf ball might be kind of strong for what we're going to do. Just going to roll at the bottom of our feet with the ball. So if you don't have a ball, you could try something creative as always at home, maybe a coffee mug you can kind of roll your feet over, or even like a can of food, something like that. But some kind of ball, if you have it, is great. A blanket, maybe 2 blankets if you have it. If you don't have a blanket, a yoga blanket at home, you can use a thick bath towel or beach towel. A block, if you have a nice foam block, a yoga block. Again, you can get creative with that as well. Just using something that is firm and supportive, maybe like a big water bottle, or or a thick book could work well. So we'll get creative with that. But if you have a little stockpile of yoga props, just get them all. Even a strap. You can also use a hey Belinda, I was supposed to be on YouTube, but YouTube is not working for me right now. So you guys can, those of you who have joined the call, to maybe let other people know that might want to be on this. You could do a watch party. That would help. In fact, let me do a couple of comments here. Have a little bit of a mishap with there we go. I just had a thought I could tag some people, let them know I'm here, so they can join in with us today. And of course, you can watch it later too. So that's good. Okay, I'll be back with you guys in a second here. Okay. So yeah, if you're joining me over here on Facebook, I'm supposed to be on my YouTube live stream, but it's not working for me right now. So we're going to do a therapeutic class today, TLC, asking you all to gather up the props that you have to support you in doing that. And the video will be up if you couldn't join us live. So let's start with some calf smashing. So this is where you can take your blanket or your thick towel and start from, you want to make a nice tight roll. So rolling it up from the long edge, make a nice rectangle to start with. As best you can, roll it up from probably the folded, the fringier open side, and so that when you roll it up, it's a nice tight roll. And then that's going to go behind your knees. So I like to lean onto my head. Some of you may not feel so good with that with your neck, so you can skip that part. But if you can, lean onto your head, lean forward enough to kind of wedge that right behind your knees in a way that really gets in there and starts to massage out the calves and hamstrings, and even opens this up through to the bottom of the feet. And this can be quite intense. Actually, we call that therapeutic discomfort. If this is super intense for you, maybe you've been doing more walking. I know I've been doing a little more walking since we're all in this time of social isolation and kind of the only thing we can do to get out and about, right? To maybe go for some walks. So with that, your calves are going to be probably extra tight, especially if it's something you don't usually do as much of. So this might be quite intense. So if it's too much, just lean forward, ease off of it a little bit. Or you can even use if you have a couple blocks, you can use those and just kind of get some weight off of it. But then just sitting back and down as you're able to, and sitting a little deeper into it as you go. And then you can take the roll and move it back a little further. And there's another, wow, another spot that might be just as needing a little more attention. I'm just when I'm teaching live my weekly class, I do this pretty much, my weekly classes, I do this pretty much every class I teach. So I do this usually at least, 10 times a week. And I really haven't been doing this. So I'm realizing how much I'm getting tight. And also how much it really helps to do this. My regular students will tell you that at first they were like, no way could this be a good thing to do. So uncomfortable. But the more they do it, the more they actually almost start to like it, right? They start to do, I noticed they're doing it before class, even without me having to ask them to do it. So anyway, so it becomes a little less intense and you start to really feel the benefit of it. All right, so roll it back. Let's do one more spot and just sitting down into that. Try to exhale and just release down into it. So the sharpness you might be feeling is, yes, tightness in your muscles, the fascia tight. It can also be more subtly. We talk about in yoga, we understand that there's these energy flow through the body, that there's these almost like little rivers and conduits where your vital life energy flows through your body and your mind. It's this whole subtle system. And those channels can get blocked. They can get dried out, almost like you would think of a dried out riverbed. And so that is, that sort of sharp dryness you might be feeling is like a block of energy flow. So just to open up the legs here, then we'll be able to just settle down and get even more grounded with that. It's very intense, so try to deepen your breath, try to exhale out a little more fully, and also this way just coming present to yourself in this process, connecting to your breath, and we'll carry that connection as we work through our poses, again, just ways of opening the body up. For a little TLC in our time together this Thursday. Maybe this will become like Thursday TLC Thursdays, right? As we get together through Facebook and all these other ways we can get together. All right, so good. So you did it. So you can remove that roll and stretch your legs out in front of you. for a moment. So that means maybe you lean back on your hands. You have to try to sit up all the way tall, but just stretch the legs out and maybe shake it off a little bit, and you'll feel what you've done there. Okay, and then we'll stand up and do some good work for the feet here. So by the way, my computer, I have my laptop right here. You can't really see that, but my laptop is right there. So if you're commenting or saying hello, that is, I can see it over here, but then the camera is over there. So I feel like I can be a little more interactive from where I'm doing the practice. Okay, so I took my socks off. We'll stand up and use your ball. I have a little cross ball here. Any ball will do. Tennis balls, I think, tend to be a little slippery, but obviously that's what you have, then use it. So we're just going to roll at our feet here a little bit. So let's see, maybe I'll turn this way so you can see a little bit more what I'm actually doing here. So you're going to start by making some loose movements. Just kind of zigzags and forward and back movements, right? And then we'll go into a more specific sequence. And by the way, you can always find a wall if you just need a little extra support, opening up the foot in this way. So then, if possible, have your heel on the floor and the ball under the ball of the foot, the big toe mound. And so you'll start to press and make little wiggles under the big toe mound. And then go to the second toe mound. The ball of the foot are these long bones it's called the metatarsals. And they're pretty long. We'll start kind of at the top edge of them. So second under the second toe, press and wiggle. Under the third toe, press and wiggle. And across towards that pinky edge of your foot. Kind of right under the toes. You're trying to spread out, make some space in that top arch. And then roll from the pinky toe to the bones, the underside of the ball of the foot, so kind of the lower edge of the ball. And same thing, you can press and wiggle, roll back across, press and wiggle, and try to hit each of the five. Just sort of imagine, where just under the line of the toe. Then back to that ball of the big toe. And then from there, you'll go from big toe to inner heel. So now we're making these long movements, big toe to inner heel. That can be often a tender spot. So go slow with that. Second toe to the heel. Third toe to the heel, kind of following those lines. They're not imaginary lines. There's lines there, tendons and so forth, and muscles. So, and when you get that pinky side of the foot, just really kind of slowing that down, that peeling that pinky edge apart is one of the arches of your feet. So getting that nice and open. I do often a couple times there. So then, coming up to where the ball is under your heel. Right, so press the heel down onto that like you're wearing little yoga heels and just get some good pressure with that. Breathing deeply. And then from there, roll back to the center of the foot. And there's like at the very, very center, there's a big thick tendon that's there, and you can just press down and kind of let the foot spread over that. Let the foot relax and drape. And just get into that very tight spot. Okay, so then you can sort of zigzag across the foot, loosen things up once again, having done that one side. Okay, and then I invite you to, before you do the second side, just stand and feel the difference between your 2 feet. Like when I look down at my feet, having done that, my foot is like more spread out. It even seems like it has better circulation, like there's more blood flow and so on, more color. I just feel more grounded. If you just get sensitive for a moment and really feel, there's like a greater connection with the foot to the earth, perhaps, a flow of energy. All right, so let's do the other side. I'll turn this way so you get a better view of my foot. And again, just start with some loosening movements, some zigzags and wiggles. Opening it up in that way. Just getting things loosened up, and then we'll go into that same sequence on this side. So you can hold onto a wall if you need extra balance. So if your heel on the floor, you can press your big toe down, wiggle, and then just under the ball of under the toe where the ball of the foot is, press and wiggle, and then to the third toe, press and wiggle, and just across in that way all the way to the pinky side. And then from there, go a little lower down, right, those long bones, and press and wiggle under the pinky side to that fourth toe area, third toe area, And again, back to the big toe side. And once you get there, go from big toe to the heel. And then again, from the second toe to the heel, making those long movements there, third toe to the heel. And yes. So finally that edge, the pinky toe side, that edge, kind of peeling that apart, and then getting to the heel itself, and like you're just wearing heels. Maybe some of you have never worn heels before. Oh, come on, we've all worn heels. And then the press down there, and just let the weight of the ball get a little nice pressure point work. And then rolling to the center of the foot, nice and slow. Again, once you get the ball to the center there, just let your foot kind of drape over, sort of passively there. Just putting as much pressure as is doable for you. And so you kind of let the foot open up, not too much pressure, because then the tissues will harden and resist, right? So then you can wiggle. Once you've done that, just kind of, smooth it out, loosen things up. Okay, so having done both sides, now again you can check it out and just feel how there's a greater sense of grounding perhaps. Again, through both sides, both feet a little more spread out, connected to the ground. And that's good stuff. Okay, so all right, so with that, let's make our way down to table pose. And then if you have a ball, I'm sorry, not the ball, a block or whatever you're using for a block, you're done with the ball now, just let that roll away. Then place the block between your upper thighs. Give it a good squeeze there. And you spread your fingers with toes tucked under. Give the block a good squeeze and lengthen through your spine. So I still want you to feel your feet. We did that good work to open up the feet, so with toes tucked under. Think about spreading the pinky toe edge of your foot to the sides of the mat. That means you're actually squeezing your heels in towards the center. So with that, there's it's still an opening through the soles of the feet, and I want you to feel if you can connect how the soles of the feet are open, kind of up your legs into the hips, feeling the sole of the foot and actually really the pelvic floor, how they connect in alignment. So give the block a squeeze, elongate through your spine, you're still really feeling that. And then with an inhale from the block, from your thighs, lift your sit bones a little higher and follow that wave through, lifting your chest, lifting your head. And with the exhale, keep squeezing the block, and as you round under, and just stretching the back out the other way. You might not feel as much of a connection from your feet into your hips with that, just kind of more up into the abdomen and the core. That's fine. But then when you go back to lifting into cow pose, again, from feet to hips, be strong, and think about moving the thighs back and lifting from that place. Good, so exhale, round under, and just do this a few times, then just moving through cow pose, cat pose. I'm just gonna look over here and see if there's some comments. Moving with your breath, and if there's more, hey Laura, if there's more, different ways you wanna move side to side, so on, you can add that in. All right, so yeah, I'm just figuring out all this technology, and I feel like Facebook changed its format, so I can't see who is on live anymore, which kind of stinks. But I can see your comments, so if you say hello, I'll see that you're here. So a couple more rounds of the breath, moving through, and just sorting it out. You go side to side. We're going to focus a little more on the lower body today. Next week, maybe we can add some other things to notice and move with. Okay, so with your next exhale, come into your rounded spine and towards a cat pose. Remove the block, and then we'll take that into child's pose. Bring your knees apart, feet together, sit your hips to your heels, and make that the priority. So if the knees are restricted or the legs are tight, you can again take your blanket roll and support yourself in a similar way. You can just put it across your heels like so as you come into a child's pose, even taking it higher up. And with that, it may mean that your head doesn't come anywhere near to the floor. So it's not like you want to be down like this if your hips are way up high. Just push into your hands and make it more about the hips going back and down. Again, if you need that support, that's a way to take that little extra connection there. And so with that, you feel the work of the core, how it feeds into how you're grounding down through your hips and your legs. So however you get there, if you can fold the rest of the way, that's fine. Just take a few breaths. Okay, so then come up through table and we'll come onto our backs. And we're gonna do this little tune-up sequence with the legs. And just like I said before, when we tune up the body, when we get the bones lined up and supported and connected to the core, tension will often release from that. Stretching from that place instead of just trying to passively stretch out the tight areas. So with that, if you have your block, put it between your thighs, similarly to what you were just doing on hands and knees and moving through. So what that means is press into your feet so you feel that connection, and pull, again, awareness and even strength up into the hips so your hips are on the floor. And as you squeeze the block, it really gives you a sense of like, okay, legs, feet and legs and hips are working together to come up into the core. And here I have my low back a little bit off the floor, so I can slide my hand just underneath. But I do want to tighten back, pulling the belly in, make the low back pulls a little closer to the floor as you do that. This front ribs really pulling in and start to really tone the lower belly, the abdomen. And you can use a breath to help you to really tighten the core, which is like this. Inhaling through your nose, exhaling through your teeth, like this. Like you're trying to make a hissing sound. And because you're having to push the breath out harder through your closed teeth, that exhale helps you to tighten this deepest core layer on transverse abdominis. And so thinking with that, you're shortening the distance between your lower ribs and hip points, and you're also tightening in, like you're just trying to shrink the abdomen back, front to back. So get that happening. Use that breath a few times if that's helping you. And then pick your feet up off the floor and bring your hands to the fronts of your thighs. Push forward and up, and continue to pull the belly and pull especially those low ribs in, that same tightening, maybe that same breath. So just, again, activating the core here. And then with that, notice the feet. Work through the spread of the toes, flexing the feet a little bit. And so again, can you draw strength and awareness from feet to hips still here, feeding that into your hips, into the alignment of your low back, even as above that, you're working the core. And you're pushing forward up with the hands, elongating your spine, breathing fully, breathing in, breathing out. Okay, so then release down from there. You can remove the block. Take your arms down to a T shape, separate your feet. Actually, take your arms overhead. Let's do that instead. Separate your feet to the edges of the mat, and then stay just like you were before, strong from feet to hips, as if you're squeezing an imaginary block, and then lower both knees to the right. And you'll get more stretch through that left hip and thigh. Work your core in the same way and turn your belly and chest to the left, having done that. And then come back up to center. Take a breath in and exhale the knees over to the left. And be strong on the edges of your feet. And pull the abdomen in, especially on that right side of the trunk, and stretch more from that right hip to right knee, drawing into that right shoulder blade. And stretch along and open, breathing. Okay. So come back up to center. And then take your block again. I'm just going to sit up for a moment and see if there's anything going on up here. Okay. Come on down and place the block between your thighs. Again, same thing. And we just did the strengthening of the front of the body, hip flexors and core and through the inner thighs. And now we'll do the opposite. We'll bring some activation into the hamstrings, the glutes, and more of the back muscles here. So press your arms into the floor. Walk the shoulder blades a little more underneath you. Again, really feel your feet pressing, squeezing the block. Have the shins vertical, so we don't want our feet touching here, but not too wide either. We want just straight up and down shins and thigh bones, right? So then start to push into your feet more. Before you lift up, can you start to just firm the muscles of the backs of the hips, your glutes, right? Tone your belly and your ribs in that same neutral spine. And here when we curl up, what we're not going to do, let me just show you this first. I don't want you to roll up one vertebra at a time. Instead, for this one, just keep your spine neutral, right? Low back a little bit away from the floor, firming the abdomen just in a bracing way. And then just start to lift your hips, right? Without changing the spine. And this just activating the extension of the hips, which will firm those glutes. You don't have to lift up very high at all, right? Just to start to activate. And if it feels good, though, to lift up a little higher, go ahead, right? Shoulder blades underneath you a little bit more. toning in at your belly and your ribs, and just holding. You start to feel maybe a little bit of a burn there. Squeeze in with your legs, and here's one more thing. Don't move your feet, but as if you're trying to drag your heels back towards your hips, towards even your shoulders. So you don't move your feet, but isometrically squeeze back, and then you'll feel hamstrings, a little more hamstring activation. So it's nice and easy here. It doesn't have to be a big, huge bridge pose, but just getting all of that connected. So one more breath. All right, and lower your hips slowly back down. All right, remove the block and take your legs up. You can take them knees a little wider and up towards your shoulders, and feel free to rock it out a little bit side to side here. Okay. And so then put your feet back on the floor and walk your legs out long. Pressing your legs into the ground, arms into the floor. And so as you push into the legs here, really make your legs steady. Flex your feet back a little bit. But the nuance of that is that you're spreading again through the pinky toe edge and trying to push a little more through the big toe, the mound of big toe. But the legs activated, like you're pressing them into the ground, especially rolling the inner thighs down to the ground. And as you do that, you might feel your low back will arch more away from the floor. Go ahead and exaggerate that. Just curve the inner thighs down, the low back in. You can bend your elbows a little bit, lift your chest with that so you feel that strength through your whole spine in the back. But then, again with that exhale, you can even push the breath out, pull your belly in, especially your front ribs in and back towards the floor. But you do want to feel that tightness also in the lower abdomen and in the navel area. So here we're not flattening back to the floor, but we're now activating all the parts. Should like a lot of work here. And then the laying on the ground is helping you to position your bones in an optimal way. So then you can push into the arms and lift your right leg to a hover, pause for a moment there. Bend that leg up slowly towards you and interlace the fingers behind that thigh. Turn that left inner thigh down towards the floor, keeping that leg super steady. And remember the strength of your glute when you did bridge pose. So tighten this right hip and tack it in a little bit more. If you look at your right knee, that should turn a little bit to the right, okay? So then push into your hands. So you're not pulling in softly. You're not trying to soften here. In fact, the opposite. Push forward so that you're activating hamstrings, glutes, the strength of the leg, and then start to stretch your leg towards straight. And it may not straighten all the way, because what we want to keep is a neutral spine, right? Hips level, abdomen strong, and not sort of passively when you pull the leg in. Oftentimes the back will just drop, the leg will flop. That's not going to relieve your tension. And this, what we're doing here is building patterns of alignment that will give you greater ease long term. So maybe in the knees bent, if you can straighten the leg more fully, then great. Okay, so then release down from there and lower that leg slowly back down. And second side, first just really activate those legs, tone your core. And then bend your left leg up slowly. Hover it for a moment, that's what we did on the other side. Then bend it in and interlace your fingers behind that thigh. Keep breathing. And that right leg, tone it to the center, turn the inner thigh down, firm at your belly and your ribs. And again, remember this left hip, remember the strength of that hip, tighten those muscles, tack it in a little bit, that left kneecap will turn, the foot will turn a little bit more to the left, and as you push into your hands towards straight. If you can straighten your leg without disturbing the hips and the spine, great. If you can't, just straighten it only as much as that goes. And that's sometimes called this an honest hamstring stretch. And it's more about the alignment and integrity you're creating in the body. That's always the case with yoga, more than how far do you bend, right? It's more skillful ultimately. This is especially important for your low back health. Often if we're tight in our legs, especially the tightness will pull us out of alignment in our center, and that's often can be the source of what strains our low backs. Right. Okay, so rebend that knee, press your arms in the floor, reach that leg out slowly, slowly, slowly back down. Once you get there, I invite you just to rest. So it doesn't feel like we did a lot, but we actually just did a tremendous amount of sort of tuning up the body and the connections. Take a breath and just let yourself release. Okay. So then rebend your knees and take the legs up. Again, just give yourself, actually try this position. We didn't do this one yet. One hand on top of each knee. So that's like kind of palms to kneecaps. And push straight down into the backs of your hips, right? So what this is not, you're not pulling in like this. We'll do that in a moment. But instead, press straight down and use a little force to push the thigh bones into the backs of the hips, right? And toning the center as part of that, lengthening through your spine. So you're in a little low back curve, but pulling your abdomen in, elongating through your spine. And this will really balance the spine and strengthen and traction the curves. Really good place to be. I do this pose a lot in my classes as well because it's so fortifying and reestablishes harmonious alignment. So then take your knees out as wide as they go, stretching out those inner thighs a little bit more, and hold onto the shins. Push into your hands. Can you again activate your feet and pull strength from feet to hips? And then feet and the legs govern really what we're doing in our pelvis and our low backs. And then we pull the core in above that. It's separate actions, but they ultimately come together. Okay, so now circle the knees up, and as promised, you can hug it a little tighter, and it's nice to rock out a little bit here. Just getting what you need with that. Okay, so then either roll to one side or carefully rock up to a seat from there. All right, and then come on up to a table pose. We're just going to do a simple lunge. So if you have a block or two blocks, ideally, or two things you're using for a block, put that up in front of the mat on your hands here. You can also put a blanket under your knees, right, if you need some extra cushioning here. Then step your right foot up between your hands. And that's important that you get the knee over the ankle here, right? And then have your foot, take your right foot a little further to the right so that your arm and your leg are flush against each other like this. I'm going to face this way. And so again, I can actually push my knee to the right and have something to push into. And then we sort of build on where we were before. I see a lot of folks who do this this lunge, and they just want to kind of just sink everything down this way, which can actually overstretch the hip flexors, cause some injury there actually, and make this about your strength and connection that will ultimately lead to more of a release. So that means that back leg, remember when we squeeze the block, you can imagine a block right here, squeezing in with that back leg, and taking the top of that thigh back enough to where you keep a low back curve, just like you did laying on your back. Then this knee on the front leg, push to the right, so that right hip pulls under, tone your belly in and up, pull your ribs in, and then as you keep pushing that knee to the right, that's going to help you tone and activate that right hip. Then you can use the front leg to kind of draw yourself a little bit more deeply into it. It's kind of this benevolent tug of war. The back leg is squeezing into the center and moving back. The front leg is pushing out to the right to activate, and then moving forward. And the place in the middle is where you find the balance and a toned stretch. So breathing here, breathing in and out. All right, and then step it back to table. And second side, moving that left foot forward. And taking a moment to set up here. Again, we want to have that front foot a little further to the left, to where your arm and your leg, your hopefully a block or some kind of height, just to give you a little more space to align your spine well, is happening there. And I think I'll stay at this angle for this side so you can really see what's happening. So that back leg, you're both dragging forward and squeezing in. So I'm actually squeezing it across the mat so the inner thigh is active, taking the top of the thigh more back. Then this front leg, push the knee to the left, tone that hip under, turn your belly in and up, and then bend into that front knee. So this little tug of war, back leg resists back and pulls in, and the front leg, as you tone your belly, pushes out to the side. That's to activate the hip, and then bend into that front knee, and it's a healthy, more unified stretch. Okay, and back to table pose. And then from there, we're just gonna stand up. So have a block with you. And this next thing we're gonna do is probably the hardest, I think one of the hardest things, is stand well. Laying on our back, so trying to recreate what we did laying on our back. So if you have that block, place it between your shins. And those lower legs, for most of us, are floppy, meaning we tend to lock our knees back or we're just sort of hanging out in our feet and our lower legs. So what the block gives you is this feeling of squeezing in. So we want to move, make your feet strong, press your big toes down, spread your pinky toes apart, and you use to squeeze those shins in and forward. So that's the opposite of back and kind of bowing out, right? So squeeze your shins in and forward. And then without losing that, move the tops of your thighs, your inner thighs back. It's okay for your butt to stick out when you do that, because this is actually getting your top of your thigh bone lined up above your ankle. Most of us are sort of hanging out with feet turned out. We're kind of forward in our thighs, maybe our knees locked back. Does that look familiar? I know, right? So instead, right, give that block a squeeze and move the shins a little more forward, tops of thighs back. Then we have to pull our core in above it. And most of us really got to get those ribs so far in. Next time we do this, we'll look a little more about what's happening above this and get up into the shoulders and then the neck a little bit more. But for now, just pull your rib cage back until then your rib cage is above your hips without thrusting the tailbone under. So this is not easy, right? So we're standing in mountain pose, but there's a lot going on here, right? So you squeeze your shins in, forward, again, inner thighs back. It's okay to stick your butt out. You can look down the side and see as my right, the hip bone, show your thigh bone. This little rolly ball here is now sitting right above your ankle, the bony part of the outer ankle. Don't lose that. You can keep your hands on your hips to like, okay, don't move. And then pull your belly and pull your ribs into where, center yourself above that. And take your throat back. Breathing. I'm working really hard. And it would, in our day-to-day life, we don't have to work so hard to stand well. Eventually it becomes, more natural. But here it's like I'm really working to bring myself back into center. That's it. Okay. So then we're going to bend to your knees. And this next move, it's when I work with my students in my classes, like this next move is like, looks so simple, but it's so hard. Just again, like we did laying on our backs, to stretch our legs in relationship to keeping our spines neutral instead of just sort of straightening our legs and kind of hinging forward like this. Again, that's kind of pulling on your back. So try this. So we'll bend your knees, make your legs strong, press into the ball of the foot, the big toe mound, drag your heels back, draw strength up, but make the legs tone by doing that. So this isometric tone, dragging heels back, hamstrings firing. We always want to tone what we're stretching. So you kind of see what I'm doing here. I'm trying now, this is kind of a new thing, put your hands on the backs of your thighs, tone your belly. So again, not rounding like this, not tucking under like this. Just keep that nice long spine. I have really long arms too, that might make that easier for me. But think about pushing your thighs back and then just stretching your hips a little higher without changing the shape of your spine, right? So belly in, ribs in, and then just stretching through those legs. Sorry, I was bending forward to see who's on the screen. Don't do that in your bodies. Keep that neutral. All right, and then with hands on maybe back on your knees, the idea here is just to stretch your legs straighter. Notice I'm straightening my knees more. I'm lifting my sit bones higher. And I'm actually getting as flexible as I am in my body. I'm actually feeling a lot of stretch in my legs because I'm working those muscles and I'm just stretching through the bones. Notice I'm not losing my low back curve. I'm not coming into this shape at all. And that's a major life skill, to learn how to stretch your legs independently of not independently, but without pulling on your core. And over time, this will give you a healthy hamstring stretch. So anyway, sometimes I often have to give my students a lot of like tutoring, hands-on awareness to really feel where this is. But people really start to get it. It's a game changer. All right, so with that, come up slowly, remove that block, and just shake it off. All right. And then with that, let's do the same thing, taking a wide stance. You can face, whichever way on your mat or wherever if you have a mat, maybe on the floor. Put a block in front of you this way, and let's do the same thing. Sometimes this is a little more accessible. So a bend to your knees, and the feet straight ahead. Do the same thing, press your big toes down, spread your pinky toes apart. If you're dragging your heels back to tone from feet to hips, you'll feel especially hamstrings toning, you'll feel those inner thighs toning. Knees, bend them as much as you need to. Let me turn back this way so you can see. Bend your knees as much as you need to keep a low back curve happening. You can put your fingers there. You have a little trench there instead of, again, feeling rounded this way, right? Hard and rounded like this. Or some of you, depending on your body, it's like we're super bendy in our rib cage area, so you might be just kind of moving your ribs forward, but not really getting a nice curve in your low back. So tighten the abdomen. Use your legs, your hips to make a curve. And then same thing, you start to stretch without losing that. And start to stretch the legs without losing that. And some of you might not get past something like this. Knees pretty well bent. I like to add maybe a couple side-to-side movements, but with that very, very intent connection, right? So I'm not just sort of side to side, but like strong, like I'm squeezing a block between my shins and reaching sit bones back and then slowly side to side. Right. And then for this one in particular, you can also do it with when the feet are straight ahead. This one gives you a little more space because if those of you can get more towards straight legs and you still have a low back curving like this, then it's fine to tip forward and to stretch out a little more, just let your back hang down. But if your low back is above your hips like this, that's not such a healthy stretch, right? You're locked out in your hips and your back. So if that's happening, then bend your knees a lot more. Try to tip from there or just stay up on your block. Work this, we call it stage 1. Neutral spine is focusing on the legs, right? So then just hands back on hips, and there's other poses that are better for stretching out the back until we get the legs to get more stretched out too. So step your feet together, shake it off. All right. So then with that said, just lower down, take a child's pose. Toes touching, knees apart, hips to heels. Tone your abdomen, and remember, put some support behind you as needed, and just take a few breaths here. Maybe the hips round back and down more. Lifting your belly in and up. Maybe you have a block under your head. Again, I want you to keep the hips the heaviest part instead of your butt way up in the air. You're trying to get your head and your chest down. That's not the best angle in that pose. You get more traction with getting the belly in and the hips more back and down, even if you're more up like this. Okay. So then come on up, and if go ahead and bring your knees together, feet together. Let's try to tuck try this. Tuck the toes under, sit back on your heels. Again, I know this is sometimes can be quite intense. It's fine to sit up on a block like this, or maybe if you have 2 blocks, you can kind of stack them like this. And also feet and knees wider apart is going to give you a little less intense stretch. Feet and knees together if you can. And we'll spread those pinky toes apart, pressing down into the balls of the feet. Tone your belly and your ribs in. And elongate through your spine. Take a breath or 2 here and just feel the opening you've established from where we were in those poses before. Okay. All right, and then lean onto your hands, point your feet back, and just going to give your feet a little smack down. Okay, and then let's take one more stretch here, and then we'll go to wrap it up. But just to build on where we've been. So come onto your back and cross your right ankle over your knee. Remember everything we did, from feet to hips, we want to be strong. The legs active, the hips on the floor, low back, and that little natural curve. We're starting to tone your abdomen in. And some of you can just push out with the right hand gently on that thigh. Or I like to come into it this way, pushing into the arms and using your abdominals to float that left leg up. Because with that, you can interlace your fingers behind the thigh or hold onto the shin and pull a little tighter. But again, we're not just sort of passively kind of folding everything in here. Push forward into your hands. So think about that work of drawing from feet to hips like you did from here, right? And using that strong core, the strong outer hips to support. So you're still building the alignment actions. It's really the same template the whole time through of lining things up, and then we gradually just stretch out through the joints. This, of course, should open a little more of that outer right hip. All right, so lower down from there, and both feet on the floor, and then cross your left ankle over, pause. Work from feet to hips, like you're activating, dragging, balancing your hips, toning your core. And you can stay here with the strength of that still happening and gently push the left hand on that left thigh, or you can push those arms into the floor and lift up with the strength of your core and holding on behind your right thigh or to the shin. I'm really feeling my muscles in the outer hips. Maybe some of you took my classes I posted yesterday. We did a lot of outer hip work. So feeling those muscles here. Anyway, pushing into the hands, toning your abdomen, keeping everything balanced. Those outer hips toning to stay balanced. So again, really building on this template of connection. All right, so lower down from there. And let's see. Yes, let's do this. Before we finish with one more floor pose, you can roll to one side and come up. Again, I want you to carefully stand up, shake it off, and kind of the goal of this, if you want to say, is again to be able to stand well. So pressing into your feet, like you had a block there, being careful not to just be passive at your knees, right, and passive in your feet. So a little bend in your knees, not a soft bend, but working the ball of the foot, pressing, spreading your pinky toe and toes, and then again, keeping the knees, the lower leg strong, tops of thighs back, and then pull at your belly and your ribs and your throat. And just trying to stand this way then in a new way. Next Thursday, if we meet again in this way, we'll bring a lot more awareness to what's happening in the ribs, like I said before. But I just want to invite you to stand for a moment and try to find that same, maybe it takes some effort to get there, but ultimately lining up in a way that establishes a greater ease. The stacking of your bones, what's in a finding of that plumb line. And that by itself is how we stay free of tension and ultimately greater ease over time. So just feeling into that as best you can here. All right, and then you can try again like what we did before, bend your knees, hands on your knees, tone your center. Again, dragging those heels back so the backs of the legs are strong. You pull your belly in, keep the low back in its natural curve, and then just start to stretch your legs, straightening the knees more, sit bones higher, not losing that. And some of you, if you're very flexible, I want you to focus on feeling the strength of your muscles, like you're toning, you're dragging the heels back to create tone in what you're stretching here. Yogis are notorious for having weak hamstrings and overstretching your hamstrings, right? This is training you to create the tone that you're using to create length. So then even so maybe some of you are still staying here figuring that out, or it is also here possible again to stretch those hips high enough, tipping from your pelvis enough. You just have to be honest with that self-assessment that you're getting enough forward here. If not, just stay more like this. But then you can, if you're there, you can fold, round your back forward. Take a breath or two here. Okay, then we'll lower down the hands and knees, and we'll come onto our backs. We'll finish with a twist. So come on down and take your arms out in a T. Cross your right knee over the left. And scoot your hips a little bit to the right and lower the knees to the left. Pull your ribs in on the right, draw into that right shoulder blade. Elongating through your spine. That same way, draw from feet to hips, keep the low back curve in, put your core in above it. Once again, it's the same template throughout. And then back up with your inhale and recenter the hips, left knee on top of right, hips slightly left, knees to the right. Tone your belly in, pull your ribs in on the left. Draw from that left hand to the shoulder blade. So again, feel that you're making a low back curve. Put your ribs in above it as you twist, connection. And again, untwist. As you inhale, straighten out. And just again, take those legs up, finishing here, one hand on top of each knee, grounding into your hips, toning through your center, elongating your spine. You can again take those knees wider, rock it out side to side. And then put your feet on the floor, walk your legs out long. We'll come into Shavasana. And like we did standing and when we're actively working on our back, trying to find a place of ease here. To take a moment to reach the legs long, roll the inner thighs down more, stretch to the inner edge of your leg. Take a big breath through the sides of the torso as you walk the shoulder blades underneath you. And then settle in from there. The rib cage settle towards the ground. And then as you exhale and relax, yes, let your legs roll out to the sides. And your arms, your palms, your biceps, your palms. Roll up and just settle in here. And it's good, just like it's good to learn how to stand in good alignment, to be able to, and pain-free, to learn how to lay on your back as well, pain-free. So sometimes we feel tension in our low backs here, and it's fine to put if you need ultimately to put rolled up blanket behind your knees, but it's good to figure out how to get supported here. So if you reach those legs and turn the inner thighs down, and take that big breath through the sides and really draw the shoulder blades underneath you. That actually helps to traction the low back into its natural curve and then settle down into it. A lot of people I work with find like, oh yeah, that does actually make the low back feel better. And now it may be again that if you do that and you still need some additional support, please make yourself comfortable. And here as you rest, just settling in. We didn't do any big poses or big, even a lot of deeper stretches. We focused a lot on toning, integrating, establishing the alignment of our bones, and just a few key stretches from that place. And so as you settle in here, I invite you to feel that flow of energy. Maybe your feet especially are feeling open, the legs heavier and grounded. A sense of settling and releasing that's there. And just the exhales, especially inviting you into that release, that clearing. Maybe getting heavier even through your hips, your legs, your feet. And one thing you might notice is that when your legs feel heavy, we aligned and stretched out the lower body a good bit. That heaviness comes from that. But when hips and legs are heavy, the low back usually feels light. There's almost like an airiness, a lightness in the low back because it's not holding the weight of the body. The hips and the legs are not holding the weight of the body in relationship to gravity. So released and settled in this way. Feeling your connection to the support of the earth beneath you. Spacious in your awareness. If you're watching this from here in Atlanta, it's a beautiful, clear, incredibly clear sky today. Crisp and beautiful spring day. And with the energy, the life force flowing, maybe you're feeling just more sensitive and connected to life around you, the prana in the air, the life just bursting forth from the flowers and the trees and the birds and the bees, all the things. Even as you're anchored into your bones, to the earth. So I invite you to rest in this way for as long as you like. Instead of sort of bringing us out in a formal way for this rest, I invite you just to linger, for at least a couple more minutes. And come out of your rest when you're ready. Thank you for joining if you were live. I am going to keep this up on my Facebook page and I'll put it to my Gina Minyard yoga page. I'm also going to post it to my YouTube page, Gina Minyard Yoga and Meditation. So it'll always be easy to find if you weren't able to be on live today. And so, I'm trying to be for this, month or who knows how long that we're going to be needing to connect through the ethers. I'm planning to be online Thursdays at noon. I may move it all back to Facebook in this way. So I think Thursdays we'll keep focusing on this TLC work. Let's see what we get into. Okay. So thank you all and take good care. I'll connect with you again soon. Bye-bye.